Are you always coming up with ideas? Do you marvel at successful business owners? Do you hate being told what to do? Ever take things apart just to see how they work? Are you a dreamer? If you've answered yes to any of these questions, this podcast is for you. Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Enclave with Kevin Wortham, the podcast that focuses on building, maintaining, pivoting, planning, and investing in you, the entrepreneur. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Pro Tapes and Specialties is the world leader in tape manufacturing and specialty conversion with over 40 years of experience. In addition to our pro brand of high-quality specialty adhesive tapes, we provide contract converting services that help improve your profitability, streamline your supply chain, and reduce inventory cost. We offer the most complete range of converting capabilities in the industry, such as cloth tape, double-coated tape, specialty tape, paper tape, masking tape,
vinyl tape, carton sealing tape, adhesive transfer tape, duct tape, foam tape, electrical tape, filament tape, foil tape, reflective tape.
And the tape just keeps on rolling. Visit us online today at www.protapes.com or call us at 800-345-0234. Pro Tapes, it's just how we roll.
Welcome to another fantastic episode of the Entrepreneur Enclave, Life's Coming Attraction. I am your host, Kevin Wortham. Listen, if this is an early Christmas present, I don't know when we're going to release it, but it's certainly going to be an early Christmas present for me. I get a chance in probably, 40 years, right? To talk to at least, right? To talk to a very dear friend, Toni Wilbon. Toni, welcome to the platform. How are you today, this evening?
Oh, I'm good.
It sounds like you're out of breath. What's going on, girlfriend? What's going on?
No, I just came from working out.
Okay.
So, like I said, I'm just trying to calm my heart rate down.
All right. Well, we're not trying to calm it down. We're trying to amp it up because I know you got some exciting stories to tell us. We want to hear all about it, right? So I'm gonna get started, and I'm just gonna say that when I met you was 1983, correct?
Correct.
And my first time meeting you, I think we were bumping into one another, going to practice. I was playing football, and you were a Golden Girl.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
What did it mean?
That was it.
So what did it mean to be a Golden Girl for the University of Pittsburgh? What did that mean?
That's a loaded question.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
Okay. You want me to slow down?
Well,
want me to go a little slower?
No. I guess what it meant, I honestly don't think I really understood what it meant until after I left the college, honestly.
Yes.
I had known about the Golden Girls pretty much my whole life.
Yes.
Had seen them perform. I had been a dancer and a majorette prior to coming to Pitt.
Yes.
And so logically, when I applied to Pitt was not my first choice, first of all. I think it was my third. It was my third choice.
Wow.
It was the backup school.
Yeah.
It was because I wanted to go to Notre Dame. That was my number one choice.
Wait. Time out. Notre Dame. What was on your mind? What?
I knew someone from my high school that was there.
Okay.
And that person had come back and really talked it up.
Okay.
And I was like, yes, I'm going to Notre Dame. But Pitt was my last choice. It was like my backup school.
Got you.
And oddly enough, I knew the assistant band director for the varsity marching band at Pitt.
Yes.
And he knew me in high school, and he asked the question. He says, "Are you going to try out?" And I'm like, "I'm not even trying out because I'm not even trying to go to Pitt.
Got you.
Not even trying." And then I remember after doing some research, I was told, Notre Dame, they have the Irish Guard, which are those tall guys that stand in the end zone and do their thing. But they don't have, a band front. They don't have any type of band front, which essentially would be either dancers or majorettes or a combination. They don't have that.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm good. So I thought. And then I changed my mind the night before tryouts. I changed my mind.
Okay.
Because, the flyers have been posted in my school forever.
Yes.
And I actually already knew 2 people on the squad. So the night before I changed my mind. So I got up the next morning, made that trek up to Trees Hall, because that's where, practice was. Because I was still in high school at that time. I had not yet graduated.
Okay.
So the only requirement is that you already had to have an acceptance letter to go to Pitt. And I had already been accepted.
Got you.
So I think it was like April, and I was scheduled to graduate in June. So, I went to Trees, did the tryout, and I got on the squad. And I remember thinking, wow, now I have to go to Pitt. That was my initial reaction. Like, now I have to go.
Yeah.
So, it was interesting. And if I could talk about it in this particular forum, there were only two African Americans that tried out. There were only 2 of us. And I can't even remember how many girls were there, but there were only 2 of us.
Yes.
And I honestly will tell you that prior to my making the squad,
yes,
the other girl told me, she says, the Golden Girls and the band's kind of in a bit of a pickle because the NAACP has kind of come after them because they don't have any African American influence on the squad.
Yes.
So they have to, from what I understand, and I never saw this in writing, so this was all, speculation for me at that point, was that if any African-American girls tried out for the squad, you were going to be on the squad.
Yes.
And sure enough, we both made it. So my making it, there was a little bit of a disappointment with that.
Okay.
Because I wanted to make it because I was good enough, Okay. I mean, I had been like dancing most of my life, so I wanted to make it because I was good enough, and I felt that I didn't make it because I was good enough.
Well, let me stop you for a second. Toni.
Yeah.
In hindsight, do you still think that? Because I thought you were good, and I can't dance a lick, but But I thought you were great out there, right?
Well, yeah, I don't think it was so much about like all my previous training.
Yes.
I think the thing that was bothering me the most was that did I make it because I was good, or did I make it because I was Black? That was my dilemma. And I'm in high school, so
yes.
You don't have like these mature thoughts. It was like, okay, which one? Why did I make it?
Yeah.
So, I made the squad, and by summer, right after I graduated, we were taking pictures. We actually started like rehearsing in the summer. So, and so I went into it and got to know, the other girls on the squad. And I think my first year we had probably, it was either 18, 19 or 20 of us. I can't remember. Okay. Maybe less than that, maybe more like 18. And it was difficult. I'm not going to lie. It was a challenge.
Yes. And
it was me and the other African American girl, and we kind of, we were there for each other. Yes. Because it was kind of rough being on the squad. We were kind of ignored.
Yes.
By the other girls, and like I said, I knew other girls on the squad from high school.
Yes. And
initially, there was some talking to us, but I found out as I got, as the season progressed, those relationships were kind of starting to die off.
Yeah.
And, and then also I think the biggest blow for me was midway in the season, the other African American girl, she quit.
Wow.
So then it was just me.
Wow.
And it was a lot to deal with.
Yes.
And because I was 17 years old.
Yes.
And I'm now having to deal with a lot of issues in terms of my race that I wasn't prepared for.
Yes.
And so a lot of it was I think a lot of behind the scenes of what was going on that a lot of people didn't know, because I mean, you guys just saw me on the field and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, yay, hey, she's out there.
Yeah.
And, and I marched every single game.
Yes.
And in marching those games, what was going on behind the scenes was we had to get weighed. We had certain weight standards that we had to make. And the way our schedule went was we got weighed every Tuesday.
Yes.
And it was kind of like a height weight chart.
Yes.
And you had to make a certain weight depending on how tall you were.
Yes.
And so we got weighed on Tuesday. And if we did not make the weight on Tuesday, we had to get weighed again. Well, everybody did. We all get weighed again on Thursday. And if you didn't make the weight on Thursday, then you couldn't march on Saturday. And Thursday was also the cutoff. We would have like a tryout, a mini tryout. And since we had like one featured number every single game,
yes,
that was essentially the tryout. And that normally was like the most difficult routine. So I made every weight and I made every tryout up to that point. And then lastly, on Saturday, we would practice on Saturday morning. And we would have a final weigh-in on Saturday morning. And the rule was, if you were overweight on Saturday morning, then you were cut from marching that entire next week, no matter how much weight you lost.
Wait, time out.
Yeah.
Time out. So, first of all, I'm sitting here. My mouth is ajar, agape. It's down to my lap right now. So we knew none. This is the first time that I'm hearing about this. Some 35 years later, never knew this. So let me just ask some questions now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we all know this. The chart that they were using to measure your weight and your height to see if you were in proportion, that wasn't a black person's chart, was it?
I'd probably say no.
Because I'm trying to tell you, black folks, particularly black women, I'm saying we, y'all carried it a different way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was. I did have some challenges.
Toni, I can imagine.
I had just figured out what I could and could not eat, how much I had to do, like any type of exercise in addition to what we were already doing in terms of rehearsal.
Yes.
And so, yeah, that's kind of how it was, like all football season.
I'm feeling the pain for you all over again, because had you told the brothers that this was happening, we would have been out there protesting. Let that sister go with 5 more pounds. Let her go with 10 more pounds. They're looking good now.
No, that was the norm. I don't even think at that particular time that I was even thinking that much about it. I'm like, okay, well, this is standard, so I just have to meet this standard if I want to march.
Now,
so
was Liz? Was she a cheerleader?
Lynn, I don't remember Lynn.
No, Liz. She was older.
Oh, Liz.
She might have been.
I think Liz was a cheerleader.
Yeah. Okay. Now, did you guys communicate with one another? Was there support there, or she had her own little challenges?
I don't think I've ever talked to her about any of that. I mean, that was just kind of the way it was.
Got you.
So I don't think it was something that we said, oh my God, we have to, make this weight limit. It was what it was.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And if you want to march, you did it. Okay. So I wanted to perform. So I ensured that I met the weight standards. And, fortunately for me, I was able to do that. And they were true to their word. If you didn't meet the weight standards and if you didn't know the routines, then you were either cut from the entire game, performing the entire game, or you were cut from performing certain numbers within the game.
Wow, that's cutthroat, and we knew nothing about that. I'm sorry to hear that. Now let me ask this question: so, how long were you the only African American woman? I guess in the dance Golden Girl.
Well, after the other African American girl left the squad, it was like mid-season.
Yes.
So it was just me for the remainder of the year, and I remember that year we went to the Fiesta Bowl. So we went to the Fiesta Bowl, you know, came back, and then tryouts were again in April. Now the trick was even if you were on the squad, you had to try out again. So if there was somebody that was better than you, that person would be selected. So there was, I remember that second year, there was a considerable amount of stress. To me, that was more stress than when the first time I tried out, because now like I'm on it and I don't want to be cut.
Got you.
So I tried out the second year, and remembering what happened that first year, there were other African Americans that tried out as well. But when it came down to the final cut, all of us except for one girl remade the squad.
Yes.
So that shows you that if they found somebody that was better than you, they'd pick that other person. So all of us except for one girl made the squad. And I remember she was devastated. And I ended up being the only African American. And that was my sophomore year. So it was just me.
Again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Now, are you beginning to have conversations with, I guess the team leader as to, are we trying to recruit more African American females? What's this? Is there a conversation, or are you still not into that spot?
It's funny that you asked that, because after I graduated, I didn't really do a lot with the band or the Golden Girls. Now, I did have friends that were still on the squad after I graduated, but I didn't. I guess I don't think I did anything with the squad until probably 10 years later.
Wow.
And 10 years later, I came back to Pitt for grad school.
Yes.
And I knew at that particular time, you know, that the leadership of the squad had changed.
Yes.
But I knew the person that was in charge of the Golden Girls, because that particular person, who is now, it was a male who was in charge of them. I knew him when he was in the band at Pitt playing an instrument.
Okay.
So, and he was, as most people think it's kind of rare, but most people forget that baton twirling actually is a sport. He was a twirler, and he was good, and he became, you know, their director.
Yes.
And I kind of got back in that fold because he found out I was there, and he said, "Hey, do you want to judge tryouts?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I could do that."
Okay.
So 10 years later, I judged the tryouts. I can't remember whether I did it once or twice, because I was there for 2 years, but I did. He invited me back to judge tryouts.
Wow.
So yeah, that I did that, and then going back also after I graduated, like right after I graduated, I was actually hired to be the Golden Girls. I was their assistant director, assistant choreographer.
What?
And yeah, I did that for probably about, let me see, I graduated in May. So I did that till about December time frame.
Wow.
So
I never knew that. So a lot of those routines you helped to create.
Yeah. And that was after I graduated. Yeah.
Wow. Now let me stop you for a second. And because I owe somebody a shout out. I can't recall. Was it KJ Jones? It was someone that they gave you my number and you called me and we got in touch. I can't recall who that was.
It was Butch.
That's right. My man Butch. Thank you. Goombe. Thank you, man. Butch. Yeah. Butch, shout out to you, man. Thank you. Yeah. So Butch gave you my number. Then you text me, and then I guess while we were talking, you had mentioned Trevera.
Yeah, Trevera.
And then I've been in touch with her substantially subsequently. So thank you. So now when Trevera came on as a Golden Girl, you were a junior, correct? A junior or a senior?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I was a junior.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so was she looking at you as an African American woman who had been standing the test of time, and you knew what was going on, and you could serve as a mentor, like, or did you see that? Did you see you having that role?
Well, that's a loaded question.
Okay.
I met Trevere in high school.
Okay, got you.
So I met Trevere in high school. I think we went to different high schools, but I met her.
Yes.
And I knew she was a majorette. Saw her at a football game, and I was a senior at that time, and I think she was a sophomore.
Yes.
And then I met her again a second time because I judged the tryouts for her high school.
Got you. Okay.
So I met her a second time. So when Trevere showed up for tryouts, I'm like, oh, you're here. I know you.
Yeah.
But I had no idea
Got
that,
you.
This pre-social media, so you don't know who's coming to try out.
Yeah.
You don't know who's going to show up.
Yeah.
And so, she came to tryouts when I was trying out going into my junior year.
Now, I got to ask a personal question. It's the most ignorant question I could think of. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm probably, thank God this is not like CNN or MSNBC, right? So let's say you want to be a golden girl, but the golden girl is not aesthetically pleasing to the eyesight. How does someone say you're not looking good for the team? How do they say that?
Well, do you want it in the context of when I was there, or do you want it in the context of now?
Both, please.
Well,
because I mean, first of all, you guys
Mm-hmm.
were absolutely drop dead gorgeous. But I'm saying, suppose there was someone who wasn't as such. How would you let them know that? Wow, maybe I don't know. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's a good question. And I can't account for like how they were judging in terms of us being aesthetically pleasing.
Yes.
But what I can tell you is after you would make the squad,
yes.
If I recall correctly, I think we had sessions to like learn how to put on our makeup.
Okay.
We had the weight standards.
Yes.
We just had, it was about projecting a certain image, but
yes.
I don't think it was any different than, and I think we get a better picture of that now when they have all these behind the scenes reality shows, like
yes.
about the NFL cheerleaders and
yes.
things like that. I think a lot of the standards, to a certain point, were similar.
Okay.
But I can't say that there was ever like a category on the judging sheet
okay.
that indicated, oh, well, this person is not aesthetically pleasing, therefore. But yeah, they kind of, it was all, I think the biggest thing for me is that it was always all about the weight.
Gotcha.
And then on top of that too, we didn't just have a standard in terms of weight. We had a standard in terms of our hair as well.
Wow.
Because our hair could not be past like shoulder length.
Okay.
We actually had, and that was, they were trying to do it, I guess, in terms of uniformity.
Yes.
So, your hair couldn't be past your shoulders.
And
you couldn't wear it up in a bun. You always had to have your hair styled. So,
But Toni, you're African American woman.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, but how could you have the same standards though?
Well, you did whatever you could do to make it work.
Okay.
But it was okay if you had short hair or mid-length hair, but it just couldn't be past your shoulders. I remember that was the cutoff.
Gotcha.
And so that kind of affected everybody, because if you had longer hair, then you had to get it trimmed.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah. Mm-hmm.
So did you ever face like racism when you're going to, whether you be on Pitt's campus or you went to another stadium and now you're the only female, the only African-American female with the Golden Girls. Did you ever face that kind of level of racism?
Not with other schools, because there weren't a lot
okay.
of, like, we would associate with other squads. Like normally if we went to an away game,
yes,
the hosting band would have some type of reception for us. And if they had a squad, then we would kind of, associate, communicate, and meet some of those girls.
yes.
And then I remember for West Virginia, I already knew the girl that was at West Virginia.
Gotcha. Okay.
So whenever we played West Virginia, whether we went to Morgantown or they came up to Pittsburgh, I look forward to, at least, spending a little bit of time with her because I already knew who she was.
Gotcha.
But, and it was kind of the same. I think I knew people also. Penn State's equivalent squad was called the Touch of Blue. And I think I knew people also. Okay. On the Touch of Blue. So, no, not really from other schools. But I had some issues. Okay. And I'm laughing, but yeah, I had a few issues with some of the girls on the squad.
Gotcha.
And fortunate for me, I knew how to hold my own.
Yes.
And I'll be honest, there was a part of me that was cocky enough at that time when we would learn a new dance step. And then you would we were learning this whole new routine. And you would have some of the girls they would kind of wait to see if I was going to get it.
Yes.
Or they would talk about, they get in a little cluster and talk about whether or not they thought I was going to be able to do, this, that, and the other.
Yes.
So I found myself sometimes, our choreographer would teach us, hey, we're doing this, 5, 6, 7, 8, blah, blah, blah. And we would, learn the steps. And then I would do I found that I could never do anything I could never half step.
Understood.
I could never half step. So even at practice, I had to bring my A game because I knew, that also, it's first of all, I knew that I had to bring the A game because I was the only African American and I wanted to march every game. So I had to make that cutoff. I had to make that Thursday tryout every time to be able to be on that field on Saturday.
Yes.
So, but yeah, it was difficult because I felt that I didn't have any friends on the squad. I had a couple people that I could talk to, but most of the time I didn't have any friends. Even now I don't have any long-lasting relationships with the girls, with the exception of Trevor and the other girl, Cindy.
Yes.
Because Cindy came in also my junior year and she tried out. So my junior year, there were 3 of us on the squad.
Now,
so
that was the question I was going. That was the question I was going to ask you. Do you guys still keep in touch? Do they ask you to come back for 10 year, 20 year, 30 year reunion kind of thing? Do they ask you to do that? After the one guy who asked me to just a tryout, yes.
After he came and he was there for quite a while.
Yes.
So they actually started doing an alumni when the band would have their alumni day during homecoming. They started having another alumni day for the Golden Girls that was simultaneous. So. The one, and I'm still friends with her. She's my lifelong buddy, Cindy.
Okay.
She, would say, hey, do you want to come back? And a lot of it just depended on, what I was doing or where I was living.
Yes.
But I did come back twice to homecoming. I came back when the band had their 100-year anniversary.
Yes.
But I didn't march. I just came because it's I just want to see.
Okay.
I want to see what's going on.
Yeah.
But the Golden Girls director was really good at doing the alumni thing, along with some of the girls in the squad. But now going back as an adult, with a career, it was kind of different. But I met 2 other Golden Girls when I came back for Alumni Day.
Okay.
Both African American, kind of bonded with them. Still associate with both of them.
Now, my question was, while you were at Pitt and you were having some challenges, did you have a support system that you could tap into, that you could just say, hey, I need to rap to you about what's going on, or is it me, or is it someone else? Who was that?
My first couple of years in terms of, being on the squad, I had people in the band
Yes.
that I would, kind of talk to and kind of tell them, what's going on. And, you'd always be like, well, just, be strong,
Yes.
just hang in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because honestly, I remember my sophomore year, it was so bad that I was going to quit at the end of my sophomore year. I was not going to try out.
Wow.
And I ran into, one of the girls that I said made it, Cindy. I ran into Cindy. I remember in Forbes Quad, I ran into Cindy and she said, I'm trying out. And I remember I told her, like, don't even bother. I remember telling her that. I was like, don't even bother because it's just crazy.
Yes.
Because at that point, I think all the fight had gone out of me.
Yes.
And I just wasn't sure that I wanted to do it anymore.
Now, do you think that during your sophomore year and maybe your junior year, the NAACP was still kind of keeping track on Pitt and some of the Golden Girls? No.
Okay. No.
Okay. So it was just it was just your freshman year that was relevant.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you finished the Golden Girls, you graduate from Pitt. Where's your next port of call? Where do you land next?
Well, I landed in the Army.
And the who?
I landed in the Army after I graduated, and deliberate decision.
Yeah.
Because I said, okay, I wanted to go to grad school.
Yes.
And I knew probably the easiest way to secure funding for grad school was to join the service,
yes.
get the GI Bill, do like the minimum amount of time required, and then get out, go back to school. That's what the plan was.
That was
initially.
The plan.
That was the plan. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what happened to your best laid plan? What happened to that?
Well, and it's funny that you say that because I remember when the Pitt band director hired me to be the assistant choreographer for the Golden Girls. I remember the first thing I told him, like, I'm already obligated to go into the Army. I'm just letting you know up front. And so his thing's like, well, we'll just keep you till you go. And that's essentially what he did. And that's why I was their assistant choreographer until December. And then on 7 January, I was at Fort Dix, New Jersey.
Wait.
Because I remember that year too.
You were close
I
to
was
me,
in
but
Jersey.
you were close to me, but you didn't call me to say hello.
I wasn't allowed.
What?
I was in basic combat training.
Okay.
So, you're restricted for at least like maybe the first 6 weeks that you're there.
Wow.
But I was at Fort Dix. That's where I went when I left. And so, that was funny because Pitt that year went to the Bluebonnet Bowl. I remember that.
Okay.
And but the Bluebonnet Bowl was at the end of December. So, I went down there as part of the band staff. We played the Bluebonnet Bowl. We lost the Bluebonnet Bowl. We came back to Pittsburgh. And when we came back, I think on the 1st of January,
yes.
And six days later, I was leaving for basic training.
Wow.
That's how my turnaround was.
Wow.
And I went to basic. And then I transferred to Fort Benning, Georgia,
yes.
because I was going through, because I was a college graduate and my recruiter signed me up for the college option to be an officer. That's
yes.
a whole nother long story. But I had to go to Fort Benning, Georgia for officer candidate school. And then I graduated as a second lieutenant. Yeah.
So Toni, you're pretty tough now. You're tough as nails, right?
I don't know.
That's all right.
I don't know. I think a big piece of it, and I guess when you look at it, my senior year at Pitt, I was the captain
yes.
for the Golden Girls.
Yes.
And then because I was a dancer, I was fit.
Yes.
So I'm like, oh yeah, I can handle all that running and all that. And it was like, yeah, I can handle that. So that's kind of how it was. I'm like, yeah, I can handle that.
Wow.
So I just did it.
Wow.
And
so now,
that's how.
what's your highest ranking now? So as of today, what should I call you?
I retired as a lieutenant colonel.
What?
Yeah.
Lieutenant colonel. What? That's all. Come on, Toni. That's all right. So first of all, thank you for your service and your sacrifice. Wow.
You're welcome.
Wow. So now bring me up to speed. Now where are you now? Because I think at one time when I spoke to you, you were in California.
No. Well, when you spoke to me, I was in California.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I was just there temporarily.
Got you. Okay.
But no, I'm still here on the East Coast.
Okay. Now let's get down to the nitty gritty, because I think that part of our delay in terms of talking to one another was that you were going back to school and you were working on your doctorate, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so, do I call you doctor now, or are we still?
Yes.
What?
No, I'm good.
Holy shit, that's all right. So what is it now? It's Doctor, Lieutenant Colonel, Toni Wilbon, Majorette. What is it? Talk to me. What is it?
Toni, still,
Okay.
unless you're one of my students.
Okay. So now, what do you have your doctorate in?
Education.
Fantastic. Wow. So you are tough as nails. That is all right. And so that was one of the reasons why it took us so long, because you were working, I think you were working on your thesis, correct?
Yeah, I was finishing my dissertation.
Your dissertation, yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because we at one point, I think we had talked about September, and we kept pushing it back because of other things. But congratulations. So now, where are you teaching now?
I teach full-time, actually, remotely for a college in Nevada. Yes. And I adjunct at the University of Maryland. Dr.
Toni, wow. You listen. You have to be the finest PhD teacher out here on bar none, right?
You know, I don't even know how to answer that question.
Just say yes, Kevin. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I don't know how to answer that question.
Then don't answer. I answered it for you. You have to be the finest doctor out here teaching our young folks. That's all right. Tough as nails. That's all right.
Yeah, it's a whole different challenge. It's
yes.
Especially going into academia.
Yes.
After coming out of the military, it was
yes.
really a mental mind shift.
Yes.
To get kind of into like a whole new world, because when you're in the Army, it's one way.
Yes.
And it's structured, and it's mission focused. And as you graduate in rank and you get more and more responsibility, there's an expectation of what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to perform. And there's a lot of similarities in switching to academia, but oddly enough, what I wasn't used to when it came to teaching was the amount of like academic freedom or, like a flex schedule. I actually had to get used to that because,
okay.
In the military, it's all about accountability.
Oh, yes.
And so, and I think this is a situation for anyone that's transitioning out of the military. It's especially if you've been in for a long time, because we're talking now, I was in for over 20 years.
Wow.
So, just being in for that time and having that type of structure.
Yes.
When I decided to get out, that was, they actually take you through like a transition assistance program.
Okay.
And I went through like an executive level transition assistance program because of my rank.
Yes.
And the question became, well, what do you want to do when you get out? Now, while I was in the military, I did all the things you're supposed to do. You go in, you're a lieutenant, you do what we call muddy boot time, which is a lot of, muddy boot stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of, being in the field. working a lot with troops, but as you graduate, you you kind of get more out of the troop leading, where you're hands on and you get you leave like the tactical behind and you become more strategic.
Yes.
But during that time, in between the gap where I was transitioning out of a tactical job into like a strategic job, I became an instructor.
Okay.
Now, the question is, did I want to be an instructor? No, it wasn't even it wasn't anywhere on my dream sheet where this is the job that I want to do in the Army. You know, I want to stand in front of people and teach them. Did not. And I will tell you, at the time I was stationed in Alaska, and I was supposed to be heading to California for my next duty assignment at the National Training Center, which is honestly in the middle of the Mojave Desert.
Toni,
so
you were in Alaska?
Yeah. Yeah, I was in Alaska.
How long were you in Alaska?
Too long, if you ask me. About a year and a half, because I was actually assigned to a really remote and place in Alaska. So it was a hardship tour. So I was only supposed to be there for a year, but my replacement was in school, so I had to wait for him to finish school. So I ended up being there a year and a half.
Wow.
So but I was supposed to leave there and go to California, and I got a call from my my branch manager, and he said, "Hey, we're changing your assignment because we have a shortage at the schoolhouse." That's what we call it, the schoolhouse. We have a shortage of schoolhouse, and we need instructors. So we looked at your record. You're going to San Antonio, Texas.
Wow.
And I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm already on track to go to California." He's like, "Nope." And so I will tell you, my stuff was already gone. I think my household goods were already on their way to California. And so I got redirected.
Yes.
And I went to Texas.
Okay.
And, the Army prepares you to become an instructor. So you actually have to become instructor certified to teach. So I got there so late that they kind of put me right on the platform teaching. And then I went through the instructor course. But I ended up staying there for 3 years as an instructor.
Wow.
And I liked it.
Yes.
Oddly enough.
Okay.
I was like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. And so when I was asked that job, fast forward all these years, I said, well, what did you do? What job did you do in the Army that you think could transition you into a civilian job? And so I sat down and I started thinking, what did I do that I liked, that I would want to do?
Yes.
And I thought about that time when I was an instructor.
Okay.
And I'm like, yeah, that was pretty cool.
Okay.
I liked teaching. And then honestly, I could tell you, the more you graduate and rank, the more you stand in front of people, the more briefings you give. So you get used to being in front of people and talking all the time.
Got you.
So, and then on top of that, that may have been my last teaching position where I was assigned to teach there. But on the other hand, I was asked to, I was stationed in Germany, and I was asked to give a class like once a month on certain things that were going on, like in my profession. So I had to give that class like once a month. So there were other opportunities that I had throughout the military to actually instruct as well.
Yes.
So, so I told when I was transitioning, I'm like, I think I want to be an instructor. So I started looking for positions that were opening, and found one that was right in my field, because over the years that I had been in the military, I had gained a specialty. And when you heard me say that I went back to Pitt after I had been in for 10 years, that was one of the reasons, because I was an instructor. I did those 3 years as an instructor. And while I was doing that, I found out that they have, we kind of call it long-term civilian schooling. Okay. But in essence, the military has a program where they, if you've fulfilled certain obligations and you've, passed all your physical fitness tests and you've had good, officer evaluation reports, you can apply for long-term schooling. And what that does is that it, the Army will send you to school to get your graduate degree. They'll pay for the whole thing. You'll still be on active duty, but depending on what school you go to, and this was a trigger for me, you can wear civilian clothes.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, okay, I could play civilian and go to school for 2 years.
Yeah.
So that is exactly how I ended up back at Pitt, because I was a medical service corps officer. So I pretty much, was in charge of a lot of combat medics and
Yes.
doing a lot of field stuff, being in command, that kind of thing. And now I'm an instructor. And I said, a friend of mine had already applied. And so I, read the criteria. I looked at the degree programs that I was eligible for. And there were 3 schools. They said, okay, you can go to Baylor University for healthcare administration.
Yes.
You can go to Syracuse University and learn how to be like a finance and comptroller and get an MBA.
Yes.
Or we have a health information systems, like health informatics, and that's at Pitt. I'm like, oh, Pitt. And they said, yeah, University of Pittsburgh. I'm like, yeah, I know. I went there as an undergrad.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh,
girl.
okay.
Yeah.
And so out of those 3, I said, I chose to go back to Pitt.
Okay.
And so I went through the process, because they had a selection process. And the competition for this program was so tight that for the Pitt program, as the Army called it, the Pitt program, they only picked 1 person a year.
Wow.
And so the year I went back, I was the only person that was selected. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they picked 1 person a year. They would send you to Pitt. And so I went back to Pitt and spent 2 years there. I'm still in the Army.
Yes.
And but wearing civilian clothes. But the catch to it was, if they sent you to school for that 2 years, for every year the military sent you to school, you owed them time. So they'll pay for it, but you owe them time. So once I graduated Pitt, because it was a 3-for-1, for every year they sent me to school, I owed them 3.
Wow.
So by the time I graduated, I owed them 6.
Yes.
So I was locked in for 6 years. But at that time, it really didn't matter, because, it had become a way of life.
Mm-hmm.
I was used to it. I wasn't really thinking about getting out.
Yes.
And I knew those 6 years would carry me closer to retirement.
Yes.
Plus, the degree would allow me to at least have a fighting chance of doing something productive once I got out.
Yes.
So it wasn't really having to do those 6 years really wasn't a big deal for me, because I went into the program at year 10. I graduated at year 12. So I knew the 6 years were going to take me to 18.
Yes.
And then I'm like, well, then I could just do 2 more and retire.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, but Toni, and again, I got to thank you for your service and your sacrifice. But let me ask this question. So you are a Black woman in the Army.
Yeah.
How do other women outside of the Army or the armed services, how do they see you? Do they see you as a Black woman doing your thing? How do they see you? Do they want to know more about what you're doing? I mean, how do they see you?
Well, and I could take it from like, I'll take it from like my students'
Yes.
point of view.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of them are just curious.
Okay.
They're like, oh, wow, what was that like for you? What did you do? Did you deploy? They have all these questions. And, you answer the question like it was interesting. It was a challenge. Yes, I did deploy. You just, answer their questions. Were you stationed overseas? Yes, I was. And, but it's like the difficulty again in making that transition is that you really try to not bring so much of the Army into your civilian job, and then you end up doing it anyway because it's been a way of life and you can't help yourself. Yeah. So, so once you when I'm starting to teach a new class and I'm standing up and, I'm telling my students something about my background. And initially, there are a lot of them that look at you like, okay, you're a scary monster because you've gone out and you've done all this stuff. Yes. But then you have to redirect it like, no, the Army was a job. Yes, part of it is built into my persona. However, this it served for me as a means to get to where I am now.
Got you.
probably one of the best decisions I made, but
Gotcha.
it served as a means to get me to where I am now.
Yeah. Now,
And so it's like, I just feel like I want to be an example to other people. And, and I'll tell my students straight up, I'll be honest, not everybody is meant for this armed services.
yes,
That's not a job for everybody,
yes,
but this is what worked for me. This is what worked for me.
got you. So now, going forward, what do you think the future holds for you? Do you think you're going to start your own business? Do you think you're going to do some more classroom training? What do you think you're going to do? Some consulting? What do you think?
Well, I still love to teach, so there always is going to be some element, or else, I would have never gone back to school.
Yes.
So, and part of the reason for that degree also was to kind of make a transition from doing, standard teaching and didactic and curriculum and those type of things, and transition into what I call more of administrative
Yes.
academia, into like the director and the dean positions. So that was probably like the main drive when I decided that I wanted to go back to school and get that degree, because I felt that I had enough degrees pertaining to what I teach, because I teach health information systems, health IT, health informatics, health data analytics. Those are the things that I teach. And in fact, I got a second master's as well before when I got out of the military within a couple of years, because when you are in any type of IT field, whatever degree you have got, after a certain while, it becomes perishable, because technology advances so quickly. So I got my first degree in 1999, and it was an information systems degree. That was the one that I got from Pitt, then went back into the Army. But when I got out and I started teaching, and I had my students ask me questions, and I'm like, oh, shoot, I need to kind of bone up. Now, this is where the GI Bill came in for me, because I just took my GI Bill money and I went back to school, and I got a second master's degree in technology from Georgetown. And then after I got that second degree, I'm like, I think I need to get a doctorate, because I kept thinking, it's like, I don't know if I just want to teach. I enjoy teaching, but I think I want to advance eventually into administrative academia.
Got you.
So, yeah.
Now, while you're traveling, I want to go back to the Army. While you were in the Army,
Mm-hmm.
did you see a lot more women of color coming into the Army?
That's a good question. I would always see a good number of women of color that were in the enlisted ranks.
Okay.
And the non-commissioned officer ranks. But when it came to officer ranks, not so much.
Okay.
And normally, regardless of our branch of service, like our branch of service or whatever branch we were in within the Army itself,
yes,
there was always there was always a clique.
Okay, gotcha.
Because, you would see another Black female officer on some installation somewhere, and even if you didn't know that person, you do the head nod across the parking lot. Hey, how you doing? I see you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I see you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have truly long lasting relationships
Yes.
with so many women that I was in the military with, just so many women, both enlisted and officer.
Yes.
And because you essentially become a family, and because of the structure of the military, just be honest, it's male dominant.
Yes.
And there are officers of color, both male and female, but you don't see them in the same numbers as everyone else. That's been an ongoing issue with all the branches of the service.
And
so,
what do you take that to be? There's not enough recruitment. What's going on?
It's interesting. And I will tell you, when I became a lieutenant and went to my first duty station, and I started meeting a lot of Black officers.
Yes.
And I'll say I was at Fort Hood, Texas at the time. And, as most officers do, we go to the officers club. But on Friday night at Fort Hood, when I was there, Friday night was R&B night. So that's where you met.
Okay.
That's where you met, like, the majority of all the other Black officers that were there on Fort Hood.
Yes.
And like I said, it was just a matter of, because there were difficulties, because, even within my own unit, I was the only, not just the female, I was the only Black officer in my entire unit.
Wow.
So you look forward to those R&B nights
Yes.
at the officers club,
Yes,
where
yes.
you can meet everybody else that's there on the installation and make those connections. But
Yes.
what I realized right away is, when you would talk to people, it's like, what school did you go to? Oh, I went to Southern. I was in the ROTC program at Southern. I was in the ROTC program at Grambling. I was in the ROTC program at FAMU. Hey, Toni, where'd you go to school? Well, I went to Pitt. Oh, you went to a white school. I got a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I found out that, that was my awakening to how strong
Yes.
ROTC programs are at HBCUs.
Oh, yeah.
Strong ROTC programs.
Well,
So,
a lot of that too is also in your urban schools, right? So when
Yeah,
you go to your inner city urban schools, a lot of them have those programs, and then they just matriculate to a typical HBCU, and they just
Yeah,
continue the ROTC program there. But yeah, I understand.
yeah. So, yeah, that was, it was weird because, I had to there was an adjustment that I had to make
Yes.
in order to kind of fit into that also, because, a lot of those officers that were from those HBCUs, there was a little bit of, being cliquish,
Yes.
but the overall, the overarching thing was that we're a minority in this man's army. So, we got to stick together.
Yes.
And that was, for me, that truly was one of the benefits that I really tapped into to get me through my entire career.
Awesome.
Because we network. We're good. We were good. We were good like that.
Yeah.
So like, if you knew you were going to a certain duty station, it's like, okay, who did I know? And you tap into that person, like, hey, I'm getting ready to come to Korea. What can you tell me? Oh, okay. Well, don't go to this unit because that boss is crazy. Don't do. So we did quite a bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, again, lifelong friends. It's like we're all kind of like retired now. But honestly, there's still some people that are on active duty that I'm still mentoring. So, mentorship is everything.
Wait. You mean they're over 50 years of age and they're still on active duty now?
Well, you're thinking in terms of being an officer, but remember, you have soldiers. Like I'll have a soldier that came in like right when I was getting ready to retire. So they're new. They're still in.
Okay.
So I don't just mentor officers. You mentor soldiers as well.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow, Toni.
So yeah. Mm-hmm. And in fact, one of my mentees, she actually just retired this year. Actually, two. I think two of my mentees just retired this year.
Wow. Now, when you were at Pitt, the projection, you would have never thought this, would you? 20, 30 years ago.
No. Like I said, my intention.
Mm-hmm.
I just needed money for grad school.
Gotcha.
That was it.
Gotcha. Wow.
That was it. Mm-hmm.
Now, if you had to look at your life, what would you have done different? Any regrets?
Actually, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think that I knew that this particular plan was going to happen.
Yes.
And all of the things that happened, but I'm pretty happy with the way everything turned out.
Okay.
I truly am. So no take backs, no do-overs. Well, I mean, there's things like embedded within that I'd probably like to take back or do over.
Yeah.
And probably like of all my assignments, if somebody would have told me like ahead of time, girl, don't go to Fort Hood, I wouldn't have.
Gotcha.
I would say, that was probably one of my worst duty assignments, but it was the place where I met most of the people that I kept in contact throughout my entire career.
Got you.
So, no, but it's funny because I still don't think, I don't think that I even thought about teaching.
Okay.
And so the military helped guide me towards something that I actually love to do.
Wow.
But I didn't answer your other question.
No, well,
I'm sorry. I just remembered.
No, you go ahead, Tony. You go ahead.
You asked me about the entrepreneurship piece.
About starting, and think about starting a business, doing some consulting.
Yes, and yes, absolutely. And there's two sides to that consulting because I'm immersed now in the field of academia, and I have a lot of other professor friends. I know a lot of them have stepped outside of the classroom and they do a lot of consulting now, and especially within like the specific field where I teach. They go to different programs throughout the United States, and they assist the faculty with like accreditation, getting their programs accredited or curriculum changes. Yes. So I know that field for me because I have friends and colleagues that are doing that now. When I get tired of being in front of the classroom, that's wide open for me. Okay. And secondly, in terms of like doing any type of leadership consulting, a lot of my military friends that are now retired have gone into leadership consulting. So I actually, that's one thing that I actually have a certification for. I'm actually certified in leadership by John Maxwell.
Oh, get out here. I love him.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So I did his certification. And in fact, and I hope he doesn't mind me telling this story, when I decided to do the John Maxwell certification, it was in Orlando, Florida.
Okay.
And so I popped down to Orlando, and the first person I run into is Tom Brooks. We were in the same John Maxwell leadership consulting.
Wow.
And as you know, he is now the president of the Pitt African American Alumni Council, yes. But I had not seen Tom since I had graduated from Pitt, and we ran into each other. We were in the same one at John Maxwell.
Wow.
So we were in the same course.
And
so
I read a lot of his books. I read
mm-hmm.
a lot of his books. So I expect one of your
mm-hmm.
books, Tony, to be coming out on leadership.
I probably think the first book I'm going to write is a textbook. Because that's a big piece of being in academia is contributing
yes.
to the profession by either helping write chapters and textbooks and things like that. So I'm more on that route right now.
Okay.
But what I can say also in terms of entrepreneurship and speaking as a retired Army officer and as a veteran, and this kind of points back to Syracuse University. When I was transitioning out of the Army, I had the Army allows you when you sign your final out, as we call it, and you get your little flag, and fortunately, I got a nice certificate from President Obama. Said thank you for your service.
Thank God it wasn't from Donald Trump.
Yeah, I got out just in time.
Yeah.
So, yep, I got out just in time. So, in doing that, another military friend of mine, she and I actually planned our retirement around the same time, and she said, "Hey, there's this program that's offered by Syracuse University, and it's called Veteran Women's Igniting the Spirit of Entrepreneurship, and it's called BWISE is the acronym for short. And what Syracuse has done with Syracuse actually has like a whole institute now for like veteran and family training. And a big piece of what they do in that institute is for veterans to become entrepreneurs. So the specific one that I went to was for women. And so what VWise does, it trains you in entrepreneurship and in small business management, and helps you if you're a female veteran, or even if you're a female military spouse, to, you know, find their passion and what it is they want to do, plus learn like those business savvy skills to do a startup or do any type of growing venture.
Yes.
So what they do, fortunately for them, the program was like in 3 phases. So I did all 3 phases. The first phase was like a 15-day, like online. So they mail you your books, and you just go through the books and you do like online training.
Yes.
And then phase 2 was a 3-day residency, and they BWise switches cities. I think the next one that they're actually having is going to be in Nashville.
Okay.
But the one that I went to just happened to be in Orlando.
Okay.
So my friend and I, we flew down to Orlando and we did the phase 2. And the great part about it is that the only thing that you have to pay for, and I hope some women veterans out there listening, the only thing you have to pay for is your flight.
Yes.
They pay for all your books. They pay for everything. They pay for your hotel. And you get 3 days of residency experience training.
Okay.
Where it's like you can get like top-notch people to actually, like they bring in people to just set you on the right path.
Yes.
So that you could do your own startup business. And then the phase 3 of the program was 12 months. They give you ongoing support, focused on how to create your small business. So my friend who went there with me, she actually started her own leadership consulting LLC, and she does like government contracts for leadership training. Yeah. Wow. And, you know, and she did the small business, Black owned, disabled vet. I mean, she has so many, you know, and this is what they teach you to do. It's like how to set up all of that. And and I think the only eligibility, you just have to make sure you're honorably discharged.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm telling you, for me, it really just kind of opened my eyes to what I could do with my own business. Now, the flip side of that was that I was already hired to be faculty by the time I went, so I already had a job.
Yeah.
But these were things that I just put in my toolkit because I know that I'm not going to work in this forever. And if I do want to get into leadership consulting, or if I do want to get into academic consulting, then I still have those tools to get it done. Yeah. And, but yeah, it was too easy. Like other than you had to pay like a $75 registration fee. Okay. And I paid for my plane ticket to fly to Orlando, and that was it. Everything else was paid for by the Institute.
Wow.
And I mean, they have other programs as well. They have that one specific to women because they wanted to make women feel more comfortable with starting their own businesses. Yes. But they have other programs for anyone that is a veteran or retiree from the military. They have, you know, I think one is called Boots to Business. Yes. They have another one called Spark. They have, you know, we love the acronyms. One is called STRIVE. STRIVE is Startup Training Resources to Inspire Veteran Entrepreneurship. Wow. And then they also have entrepreneurship boot camps. We call those EBVs. Okay. And with the entrepreneurship boot camps, they have them in conjunction with different universities. Yes. I would have to go on the website to look to see like who they're partnering with. But you can do the entrepreneurship boot camp, you know, anybody, not just women. Yeah. But they have, those are partnerships that they have with certain universities. And I know it's more intense than what I did with the VWise program. So they're quite a number. I would just tell somebody to, you know, go to the website if you're ever interested. And it's under Syracuse University, but it's specifically called the I think it's Dianello Institute for Veterans and Military Families. I can't remember because I'm trying to pull this out of my brain because I usually use the acronym, which is IVMF. Okay. But yeah, it's under Syracuse University, and you probably, if you Google Syracuse and veterans, it'll pop up.
Gotcha. I'm gonna check that because I've been doing entrepreneurial training for youth and adults for over 35 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would love to, off record, sit down and talk to you. There might be some things that we can do collaboratively.
Yeah.
But Toni, this was fantastic. Man, this was worth its weight. I am so glad I had a chance to sit down and follow up with you. Now, my next question is there anything else that you want to share for the listening audience that you think would be of interest to us? Because you shared a lot, Toni. Thank you. You shared a lot. This was excellent.
Well, the only thing I could probably say is, I'll start with at the beginning. I'm glad I actually did choose Pitt.
Yes. Finally.
Even though I didn't want to.
Yeah.
I'm glad. And it's like everything happened. And, I hate to use that thing that everything happens for a reason.
Yes.
But I would say that everything that happened was a significant milestone to get me to where I am now.
Yes.
And, I have to say it's difficult. I'm trying to just wrap my brain around how to conclude this. But I would have to honestly thank Pitt for being there as to at least lay the foundation for me for what I wanted to do, and then to be able to come back and go to grad school there again. Yes. At Pitt, and hang around my family again. That gave me an opportunity to do that.
Now, let me ask this question, Toni. Now, were you active in the Black Student Union while you were a Golden Girl at Pitt?
I was kind of, probably not as much as I needed to be.
Because they would have really supported you had they known that all this was going on in your life.
Yeah. And I've thought about that after the fact.
Yeah.
But like I mentioned, it was just something that I'm going to use a military term here. It's like suck up and drive on.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how that was for me. But it enabled me, those little life lessons dealing with those girls.
Yes.
Prepared me for what I had to experience to a greater degree.
Yes.
When I was on active duty. So all that I experienced and all that I learned to do while I was a Golden Girl prepared me for what I had to experience when I went into the military.
Now, you were saying that you were having difficulty trying to conclude. Let's not conclude. Just say that there's part 2 coming, right?
Well, I guess. And part 2 will be for me when I, step off the podium.
Yes. And,
decide to take the consulting route.
Yes.
But I still think regardless, when I step out of just full-time, academia, I still think that I'll probably take an opportunity to probably still be an adjunct.
Not a problem.
Probably will.
Yeah. Because I can see that based on your background, you're going to be impactful and encouraging for some time to come, Toni. Because I'm seeing now that both men and women could use access to the resources that you've gone through and that you could provide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I have a heart for veterans. I'm in a few veterans organizations. Specifically, I'm in a women veterans organization because when women transition, we normally have a few more obstacles than our counterparts. Yes. So that's kind of where my heart lies in terms of a lot that I want to do as well.
Understood. Yeah. Toni, if there's nothing else, listen, we're gonna ask our listening audience to stay tuned for part 2 whenever that may be. But the platform is always open to you. And again, thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice. Dr. Toni Wilbon, thank you. Man, I love saying that now. Wow, fantastic. Okay.
And I'm just laughing. I'm just laughing.
Why are you laughing, Toni? Why are you laughing, Doc?
Because outside of all that, I'm just still Toni.
Well, so to you, you're still Toni, but to me now, you're Dr. Toni, man. You have accomplished a lot. You show what dreams and perseverance is all about, what hard work, sacrifice, and commitment is all about. So I thank you. And I know that what you had to achieve was not easy. So again, I say thank you. And I know that there's a person that's going to be encouraged by the listening and the hearing of this podcast when we do drop it. So I just say thank you again, Toni.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah. All right. Toni, Dr. Toni Wilbon, let's you and I stay connected. Let's talk and text later on because I want to bring you up to speed on some other things, okay, when we're offline.
Okay.
All
Will
right.
do.
Toni, have a good evening.
All right.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Okay.
Bye.
Take care.
Yep.
That concludes another episode of the Entrepreneurial Enclave with Kevin Wortham, the podcast that focuses on building, maintaining, pivoting, planning, and investing in you, the entrepreneur. We hope you found this episode informative and enlightening. If you have any questions or comments about any of our episodes, please call 609-731-9311 or email kevin@minding-our-business.com. We look forward to joining us for our next one. Until next time.